We now enter the different stages, section stage. The first session is about how pursuit of meaning affects consumer behavior. Live from Canada, now we have Nicole Mead, who's the Associate Professor of Marketing at Scollege School of Business from York University in Canada. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really delighted to be a part of this very special initiative. I thank NOVA, SBE, as well as all the organizing committee and the IT group for putting on this amazing event. I hope that this is the first of many to come over the years. As Mike Norton was also saying, he was a social psychologist by training. I was as well. And one of the reasons why I moved from social psychology to marketing is because of marketing's unique opportunity to create positive change for individuals, the society, and the environment. And this led me to study how the pursuit of meaning affects people's behavior in the marketplace. So to start, I'd like for you to just take a moment to think about, if I asked you to buy something to help you infuse your life with meaning, what would that look like? Just take a moment to think about a couple of possibilities. And marketers, you can put on your marketing cap and think about when you intuit what your consumers will want in their pursuit of meaning, what will that look like? Now, if I were to survey responses from the audience, I'd get a really wide variety of responses. Very common ones are watching a movie with the family, traveling, hiking, going to a museum, and then maybe having a nice meal with some other people. Now, the responses are very idiosyncratic because when people pursue meaning, they're trying to live in line with their values. Now, as a researcher, though, I'd like to quantify this a bit more. And one common thing across all of these different experiences is when people buy something from the marketplace, those goods and services are subject to price quality trade-offs, right? So one question is, when people are pursuing meaning, what are they looking for? Are they looking for something that's more or less expensive? And this is a good question to initially ask because universally people use price and quality as inputs, as really important inputs into their decisions in the marketplace. Right, so one of the questions, if people were pursuing meaning, more or less expensive product. Now, let's imagine we're in Lisbon, where we were supposed to be together, and we're having some beautiful pastel de natas. And with those pastel de natas, we need to have some coffee. So if I were going to buy a coffee maker in order to, in the morning, enjoy my pastel de natas, maybe connect with my partner or my parent, would I be buying a more or less expensive coffee maker? Now, most people intuit that when you're pursuing meaning, when you want something to be very meaningful, you're going to buy the more expensive product. It's going to be longer lasting, it's going to have better features, it's probably going to give you a better experience. But in contrast, we found over and over and over, so when people are pursuing meaning in the marketplace, they're choosing the less expensive product. Now, before I go on, I'd like to mention that this research is in collaboration with good friend and collaborator, Lawrence Williams. So let's just take a step back for a second. Think about this in a bigger picture. So we're all here because we know purpose is important, and purpose is one input to meaning. Now, meaning in association with pleasure are one of the two key inputs into happiness and well-being, right? So when people are trying to generate happiness and well-being, when they feel happy or when they feel like they have high well-being, it's because they're feeling high meaning or pleasure. Now, pleasure just means feeling really good, right? So maximizing how good I feel and minimizing the negative feelings that I could have. Now, when we think about meaning a little bit more, what is it? And so philosophers discuss meaning, psychologists discuss meaning. Now, over the years, many years, it's a very diverse topic. We've come to an understanding that meaning is composed of three things. And one of the reasons we're here is to talk about purpose. So one of the key inputs into meaning is a sense of purpose. And purpose just means acting in line with our values, trying to grow and be better as a person. The other key input is significance. So when I feel like I'm having a positive impact on other people, then I feel like my life is high in meaning. And the third is connection. So when you're connecting with other people, one of the things that we've been missing a lot during this pandemic, when we're connecting with other people, we feel like our life has meaning. But connection is not just social when it comes to meaning. It's also connecting even with different parts of yourself. Right? So we have our past self, our current self, and our future self. When we feel a connection between those things, we feel a sense of meaning. Now, firms acknowledge and appeal to meaning, and they've been doing this for many years, I think, before consumer behavior or marketing researchers have got to this topic. So you can see here just a few examples of services, products, and even financial services that appeal to people's sense of meaning. Academics have been a little bit slower to the table on this one, or not all academics, I should say, marketing scholars. So there's this idea that consumer choices are driven by hedonic and utilitarian considerations. So feeling good and being functional. And that's been the guiding framework for a lot of the research that we've been generating, which we hope then has input into actual business practices. Here's another example. Consumers perform consumption behaviors for two basic reasons: hedonic gratification and utilitarian reasons. So academics, marketing academics, have a lot to learn in terms of how the pursuit of meaning actually affects consumer behavior. And I hope that this talk has imparted a call to other fellow marketing academics to study it. We do have a small idea of what happens with consumer behavior and meaning. So one more recent research suggests that people believe that meaningful consumption requires high upfront investment. So that means right now I'm willing to devote time to figuring out what I want to buy, energy, or even money. And I do that because I want the products to give me long-lasting benefits. I want high-quality products that will last a longer time. And there's other work to suggest that meaningful consumptions are valued by people. Right? So, and they're constantly reconsumed. So people consume them over and over rather than just setting them aside as we do with so many other products. So all of these point to the suggestion that when people are pursuing meaning in the marketplace, they should want the more expensive products, the ones with better features that they will enjoy to consume over and over, that will last longer. But as I've alluded to, it's not what we're finding. We're finding that when people are pursuing meaning, they're choosing the less expensive product. So let me explain why. But first, to explain why, we need to back up at one moment and learn about opportunity costs. Now, opportunity cost means that if I spend $7, say, on a strawberry smoothie or a glass of wine in Lisbon, I can't use that $7 to buy flowers, movie ticket, or anything else. Right? So every time we choose, we displace other options. And economists, for them, this is a truism. It's obviously how people think and behave. But we know that people tend to neglect these opportunity costs. When they're making a decision, they're focusing narrowly on the products at hand, and they're not thinking about how that choice affects other decisions. But when people are pursuing meaning, they're shockingly thinking about these opportunity costs. They're thinking about how buying that product impacts other product decisions. Why? Well, let's go back to what we know about meaning. So one is that they care about how their behavior will impact other people. Right? So they're thinking about, if I spend €300 on this coffee maker, that's €300 that maybe I can't use towards my child's education. They're very thoughtful in their decisions. So they're thinking about, if I buy this coffee maker, how will that affect my other decisions? Right? So people who are pursuing meaning are thinking about whether there are better things they could be doing with their money because they know that their decision is impactful. They're also thinking about priceless options because when we think about stereotypical ways of pursuing meaning, they're often priceless options. They're practicing yoga or meditation or helping others. So all these things may lead people pursuing meaning to consider the more expensive product to be less desirable. So to sort of summarize this, most consumers, when they're thinking about products, they're just thinking about the ones at hand, right? The more and the less expensive product. They're narrowly focused on those without thinking about how that affects their other decisions. But visually, this is what's happening when people are pursuing meaning, right? They're thinking about that decision in relation to all the different other ways that they could be pursuing meaning. And that causes the more expensive product to seem less attractive and the less expensive product to seem more attractive because it helps them to use those leftover resources for other ways to pursue meaning. So this is the basic paradigm of our studies. We have two phases, one in which we randomly assign people to pursue meaning or to pursue pleasure. And then we have all the respondents indicate their preference between more or less expensive product pairs. We've done this across many different studies and many different types of services, experiences, and material goods. Okay, so more or less expensive coffee makers, we've talked about, more or less expensive water bottle, cooking classes, a single cup of coffee, watching a movie, cars, disposable cameras, more expensive digital cameras, skis, be it rental skis or skis to purchase. And across all of these different types of products, we mostly find is that people who are pursuing meaning, who are asked to pursue meaning in their choices, are more interested in the less expensive product as compared to those who are pursuing pleasure. Now you might be thinking, well, this is just all hypothetical. Maybe that this isn't actually how people behave in the real world. So we asked people to go shopping and we actually gave them money to go shopping and gave them a budget, depending on the country, approximately $100 in US dollars. And we wanted a platform that would allow people many different ways of pursuing meaning, right? So we didn't want to limit them to a particular brand, a particular set of products, to be sort of as open as possible, giving this best chance to the alternative explanation or the alternative hypothesis. And what we find is that even if we tell people, we'll give you, here's the money, you can buy whatever you like with it, and whatever leftover money you get to keep, people who are pursuing meaning are spending less on products, right? They're conserving the additional resources for alternative uses. And we find this basic pattern in both incentive compatible and hypothetical studies. And we find this across countries. So in the US, in the UK, we find this in Canada, in Australia. We find this across different ages, across both men and women. And importantly, we find it also regardless of people's product involvement. Okay, so even if you are an avid skier or really into coffee or really into cars, when you're pursuing meaning, you're still spending less money. Now, as I mentioned, this is because people who are pursuing meaning will cheap out, or they cheap out because they're focused on alternative uses for their money. So how do we know this? Well, one of the simple things that we do is when they're choosing products, we ask them to just write down what it is they're thinking about. They're not thinking about how great the product is or different features. They're thinking about other things they could do with their money. They're thinking about that trip they want to take or the money they want to save for their children's education. So the implication then of this is that when people are pursuing meaning, which we often want them to do in the marketplace, they're not focusing on the product benefits, what we're actually trying to tell them about. They're focused on the price tag. And that focus on the price tag is causing them to neglect the things that we're trying to communicate to the consumers. So when we give people reminders, high quality products last longer. right? That should be of interest to people who are pursuing meaning. We find that helps. So for those of you who are more numerically inclined, when we manipulate whether people receive this reminder that high quality products last longer, that offsets the effect of our meaning manipulation on choice of less expensive, lower quality products. And this is done because it reorients them towards product benefits and stops them from thinking about the opportunity costs. Right, so there's a chasm. People say that meaningful consumption requires high upfront investment, that they're trying to invest in the future. But when they're in the marketplace, the pursuit of meaning can lead people to shortchange themselves. It causes them to focus on the price tag to the exclusion of the product benefits. So what's a marketer to do? Well, one thing is it's really tempting. A lot of firms want to position how they are aligned with consumer values, how they're an aid to the pursuit of meaning. But it doesn't seem like consumers in our studies want that. They want potentially for the marketer or the firm to tell them how buying that product will actually allow them to save money so they can pursue the other things in life as well. Right? So for example, if you are the brand manager for a cooking class, you can highlight that by taking this cooking class, you can in the future save money because you're not going to be going out to eat as much back when the pandemic is over, of course. The other thing you can do is you can reorient people towards future product benefits. So Eileen Fisher has built a successful brand for high price and very simple products, but she often orients her consumers to the future benefit. So this ad says, "A love that lasts, wear what you love, live with it longer." So indicating that yes, it is expensive right now, but if you buy this, then you're not going to be replacing it. And again, this seems obvious, but the consumers are not thinking about it in that moment. So we need to gently remind them of this fact that high quality products will last longer and therefore it should be of interest to them. And then another implication is for those who manage lower tier brands or products. So you don't necessarily need to incentivize consumers to buy them by, masquerading them as something that they're not, or even discounting them further. There's a psychographic segment. There are consumers who are pursuing meaning who are interested in those products because they are lower price. So this is just a drop in the bucket. It's very initial research. This finding is robust, but how people pursue meaning in the marketplace, how that impacts consumer decision-making processes and preferences. There's so much left to learn. We can think about how meaning affects saving, how it affects their willingness to buy sustainable products, whether it causes them to reduce their consumption overall, something that a lot of experts in climate change have been advocating for. What other factors besides durability orient people who are pursuing meaning to high quality products that will be more in line with their future needs? And I think one important distinction will be looking at how the experience versus the pursuit of meaning impacts consumer behavior. There seems to be that gap that I mentioned. So is this due to the experience versus the pursuit? I'd like to say thank you very much again. Muito obrigada. This research was made possible by Canadian funding as well as my wonderful research assistants.